Nichiren had a keen sense of thankfulness for benefits of every kind, just as he never excused those who did him wrong. Hi, everyone. Namo Myo Renge Kyo. Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking just a moment to like and subscribe. It really helps spread the availability of this channel, make it more, it raises it in the search results in YouTube, so it helps expand our Sangha. Super important. It's Bodhisattva work, yeah? Interesting statement. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your practice. But think of what that just said. I like it because ever since I was a young child, this idea, you remember I grew up French Canadian, very old Catholic Christian culture, not like the New Age fanaticism of the United States, which is they act like they just discovered religion. But still, religion in general, Christian, Judaism, Kabbalah, Islam, whatever. This idea of forgiveness, it always grated on me. Even when I was a tiny child, I remember, forgiveness? What do you mean? It's like saying, okay, you've betrayed me, you've done something wrong, you've lied to me, whatever. You've done me harm. But I'm going to let it go. Because I'm better than you. Because it's not going to affect me anymore. And I'll just forget you did that. Okay? So we can clean the slate and move on. What? That is the essence of crucifixion. It is the essence, let me not use crucifixion because that's too specific, immolation. It says to yourself, firstly, and to everyone else, my life isn't worth crap. It just isn't. I know this because my life isn't going to be worth anything until after I die. Think about it. This obsession of this word and the thinking behind it. We don't think about its implications. So let me read this again. Nichiren had a keen sense of thankfulness, appreciation for rewards, benefits of every kind, friendship, stalwartness, commitment to practice, truth, honesty, support. All of these interrelationships, greatly thankful for. I relate to that just with our endeavor here. I'm incredibly gratified at the effort you're making in your practice. Deeply. I know it myself, so I understand what it takes, yeah? Just as he never excused those who did him wrong. He didn't forgive. Why? Because he held a grudge? No. That's that same double-sided sword of religion. I forgive you, or I hold you in contempt forever. No. That's not what he's talking about here. What he's talking about is an intelligent, sentient being incredibly gratified by anything people did with honesty and with clarity and with true, sensible meaning, life-affirming. But if somebody wrongs you, you have to keep a a record of that. You have to know. It's just like the scorpion and the turtle analogy that we talk about in Buddhism all the time, right? If you allow yourself to be lulled into the same situation without regarding the capacity, the nature of this person who's wronged you, and you go along thinking, oh, I'm godly or whatever, and then you get wronged again, you can't be angry with that person. You can't hold them responsible. You invited it. You're betraying yourself because you're not recognizing the nature of this individual. Does that mean you behead them? No. Just don't be stupid. You can actually help them change that karmic engine of theirs and work toward their own enlightenment. That's constructive. That's compassionate. Forgiving them is the height of ignorance. Some of you might have a hard time listening to that, and I apologize. I'm not trying to insult anyone. I'm speaking very clear terms here. And I'm reading this over centuries old biography on Nichiren, and the same observation is being made. And I have to understand, I have to see the clarity of that. So Buddhist. Right? Actions have consequences. What an earth-shattering realization. Now, I'm going to say, it's not because Nichiren holds them in contempt for the rest of his life. That's not it at all. But Nichiren doesn't fool himself into thinking that these people who've wronged him couldn't do it again. He can't just absolve them of responsibility. We are all responsible for ourselves, just like the one who wronged you is responsible for their behavior. It's not about holding a grudge or holding in contempt. It's about being present. Oh, I want to be alerted to this possibility so that I don't allow for it, fool myself into thinking it won't happen again because I've absolved it. How stupid is that? It's like washing the kitchen floor and forgiving it for being dirty. And then a month later, you're like, gosh, look at all this crud on the floor. I forgave you. Why are you doing it again? Because you're not being reasonable. It's irrational to think that the floor won't get dirty again. Do you see? It's not that I hold the floor responsible. I understand its nature. That's a very different proposition. So I find that sentence to be very validating. Yep. I get it. Let's continue. We have seen how he based his ethical theory on the three relations in human life, namely the relation of a man to his Lord, his master, and his parents, and how earnestly he desired to dedicate all his merits to his parents and friends, and even to his persecutors. Now you see, that just makes my point even clearer. He didn't forgive his persecutors for persecuting him. No, rather, he endeavored doubly hard to help them change their nature because he understood their nature. He just didn't turn a blind eye and go, okay, really you're better than that and you'll never try to behead me again. That'd be a serious error in judgment, wouldn't it? Do you see the point I'm making? We've also noted how he spoke of the men and women who supported him in the worst days of his banishment as if they were reincarnations of his own parents. Remember, we've seen this example, this filial example, throughout several sutras, treating others as though they were our only child, or respectfully helping, assisting those as though they were our parents. In a very real way, we are all connected in just that way, right? We may not have come through the same womb, but we've come through the same universe. We've come through the same atoms and electrons and cells and, right? We are all individually absolutely responsible for our actions, thoughts, deeds, thoughts. I said thoughts, but, right? So working together to elevate the level of dignity, humanity, it's absolutely necessary. You can't do it alone. You can't do it from without, outside. It's all done from within, yeah? Similarly, the letters written during his retirement are full of expressions of affectionate gratitude toward those who sent him food or clothing, right? To a nun who sent him a bag of seaweed, the sight of which made him homesick for his native place, he wrote, quote, "When I had nearly forgotten my native place, these seaweeds you kindly sent me awakened in me a yearning, memories of the familiar sense of my boyhood. The weeds are like those I used to see in the waters of my native province," in Awa, right? "The same in color, form, taste, and smell may it be that they have been sent by my dear parents. I cannot help thinking so, foolish as that may seem." Thanking this woman profusely, not taking away her generous gift as though it came from his parents, but the sentiment, the karmic relation, the depth of his gratitude to this woman wasn't just, "You're some woman who sent me this seaweed and I had these thoughts," but that your act is as nurturing, as profound for me, as though you yourself were my parents feeding me, sustaining me. That depth of gratitude. Do you see the inner workings person to person here? It's certainly a different way than we tend to think in the West. We're so individuated in the West. You did this, I do that. But it's not, the lines aren't that solid between human beings. They really aren't, right? This is what I say, when our practice influences our environments, it's a real energetic way in which we're connected. No act happens hermetically in and of itself of an individual. Everything responds in our environment. Do you see? In short, everyone who nourishes him, the man who is living for the sake of the truth, is father or mother, and is thus contributing to the Buddhist cause. Just like you are right now. Just as when you support this channel, or like and subscribe, or through Patreon or PayPal, you help support the financial burden of keeping this channel going. Or when you buy books off the bookstore, or even a mandala. It's a great assist to your practice, but it also affects the ability to do this in the first place. We're like an organism, right? Like the aspen grove I talked about. Yeah, I think it was in the last video or maybe the one before. In this way, his sense of personal indebtedness was always combined with the consciousness of his high mission. There was nothing in his life that did not present itself in these two aspects: the immediate benefits and the eternal cause, all practiced in the communion of the students, practitioners, the Sangha. As much, and I'll echo this sentiment, as much as I appreciate your involvement and your participation in this study resource, not just the channel, but the podcast, the bookstore, the information on threefoldlotus.com, all of that. On the other side of that appreciation is a sense of responsibility for maintaining it. And that's not a burden. I know I used the word burden earlier. I'm only identifying that the exegesis to keep it going is certainly rewarding for me. But as I extend and share through these mediums to all of you and those who might happen upon this resource, I feel this is the very essence and meaning of what it is for me to live this life. And all of us can feel that way, should feel that way. We're absolutely, inextricably connected, right? I derive value from the value you find in participating. Is it that symbiotic human relation? The close union of practitioners and ethics, or practice and ethics, was a characteristic feature in Nichiren's thought and life, and it appears in a harmonious combination of his human sentiments with his Buddhist aspirations, right? An episode in these years of retirement may serve as an illustration of this union, as has been mentioned in connection with Nichiren's execution. One of his warrior disciples, Shijo Kingo, was always a great favorite of Nichiren's. In the 6th month of 1277, Kingo was slandered to his lord by religious opponents, right? We read several Gosho about that. They had contrived to show him conspiring against his lord, Emma, remember? They made up a story because they were sick of Kingo being the favorite of the Lord, not Nichiren, but of the Lord of the land, the elite landowner, right? Nichiren wrote to his disciple, admonishing him never to waver in his commitment on account of the accusation. He's a samurai, right? I remember talking about this. Nichiren is like, okay, don't just go slaughtering them for lying about you. Hold on. There's a better way to do this. Quite something to ask of a samurai, yeah? His dignity was at stake. And composed for him a defense to be presented to his lord. Instead, counter their heinous accusation with some truth. Give your Lord Emma the benefit of being an intelligent leader and refute their accusation with some facts. The Lord remained inflexible, and Kingo was finally deprived of his position and emoluments. It didn't work. Yet the faithful warrior not only remained steadfast in his practice and following Nichiren's doctrine, but continued to show admirable fidelity to the Lord who had done him injustice. Wow. That's quite something well, it's in the nature of a samurai to keep loyalty above all else, right? But he had reason to really execute some revenge. But now he was in a situation where if he executed revenge and his Lord Emma, his boss, didn't believe in his innocence, he would further dig himself a hole, This fidelity made such an impression on his boss, Lord Emma, that in the following year he restored Kingo to his former position. Because by his behavior alone, Kingo made a much stronger point that he wouldn't be the sort to do what he was accused of. And Emma, his boss, came to his senses. But it took a year, yeah. And in Nichiren's view, that would be expiating negative karma. See, that's something we often forget in Buddhism, that our struggles and sometimes horrific seeming injustices are manifesting because of negative tendencies in our own, right, freight train of karma. And if we behave, if we don't lend ourselves attention to that negativity, but instead drive through it, we can get rid of it, modify it, take those very same struggles and turn them into a point of strength. We don't know how that's going to look, but we have to have conviction that it will. And that's the constant message in Buddhism, isn't it? All Nichiren's letters about this affair, especially the last ones, expressing his great joy at hearing of Kingo's restoration, exhibit his affection, his understanding, his I'm in this with you with his disciples, as well as the way in which he counseled and encouraged them. Because for Nichiren, it had to be very validating that, as a parent, again, have I led Shijo Kingo astray? He's suffering now. I have to have conviction myself that the advice I gave him will bear fruit. Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. This is how we live our samsaric lives, my friends. These are what we talk about: conviction, resolve, effort. The most touching of these letters is that which was written after Kingo's visit at Minobu. Whether he had come to express his gratitude to his spiritual father, his great leader in Buddhist thought, after Lord Emma had reinstated him. Wow, that was... Nichiren had been anxious about Kingo's journey to Kamakura, fearing that his enemies might attempt to take his life on the way through mountain passes. News had now come of his safe arrival, and Nichiren rejoiced at the tidings, but advised continued caution, right? Don't forgive and forget. Stay alert. Understand the nature of these people that would tear you down. In their frustration, they may act violently, right? Stay aware. Don't go kill them, but don't deny what they are, their nature, right? Quote, when you left me here to go back, my heart and mind almost died in me. And now I hear of your return to Kamakura without any danger. What a joy and relief it is to me. Does Nichiren not sound like a parent? I was so anxious about you that I asked everybody that came from along your route, did you see Kingo? Is he okay? My anxiety was relieved step by step when I was told that you had been at Yumoto, then at Kozu, and at last at Kamakura. Hereafter, you must not come over here unless on urgent business. Not that he didn't want to see Shijo Kingo, but that the trip to Minobu was a difficult one, yeah. If you have anything to consult me about, send a messenger. Indeed, your coming here last time caused me too much anxiety. Think of my concern about you before you set out to see me. All right? Commonly, your enemies have their eye on you when you are beginning to forget them. If you should hereafter go on a journey, never leave your house or your horse behind you. Select your retainers and furnish them with armor. You yourself must go on horseback. It is said, quote, the protection of the gods is given to those who are strong and prepared, end quote. The lotus of truth is a sharp sword, but its effectiveness rests with the one who uses it. Therefore, be strong and discipline your mind. This is so quintessential Buddhism. If your resolve in the lotus of truth be firm and strong, all perils will vanish before you. Thus thinking, be steadfast in your practice. Do you feel like that was directly to you? I do. This is why Nichiren is our mentor. As he exhorts us to, we need to emulate Nichiren in our practice. Yeah? The author goes on. 1 month before this visit, when Nichiren was informed of Kingo's restoration, he wrote him a letter of encouragement which well shows how human sentiments and spiritual aspiration for Buddhahood were connected in Nichiren's mind. Another quote. He who endures constant persecutions in the beginning, in the middle, and to the end is the messenger of the Tathagata. Because samsara is full of greed and anger, avarice, and manipulations, and foolishness, stupidity. That's the situation of samsara. That's the very human animal aspect of life. But by focusing on our Buddha-ness, we can raise out of that a mental perspicacity of clarity, genuine experience, where our love, excitement, and awe of this experience and preciousness of life rises above all other concerns. But it takes effort, yeah? This is why he who endures constant persecutions in the beginning, middle, and end is the messenger of the Tathagata. What does that mean to be a messenger of the Tathagata? It's the bodhisattva life. Living in samsara with the knowledge, the awakening, the clarity of thought that is Buddha-ness. It's not only a mental exercise, it's the energy of life exercise. It's the constant awareness of this magnificent train of time-space that we are experiencing moment to moment. There is no baggage in that experience. I, Nichiren, am not quite the messenger of the Tathagata, for I am a common man. He recognizes samsara in himself, yes? Yet something like the messenger am I, who have twice been exiled on account of the hatred of the three classes of my opponents. I am something like the messenger because my mouth utters the sacred title of the lotus, although for my person, I am just a common mortal, inflamed by the three kinds of passions. Right? He's a man. This kind of exhortation that we see throughout Nichiren's writings is one of the reasons I take such issue with certain sects that want to deify this man and make him something that he constantly reminds his followers I'm not. I'm just like you. I'm struggling in samsara to be a bodhisattva, a fully realized bodhisattva. I understand Buddha-ness. I sense Buddha-ness. I accomplish Buddha-ness. But I'm still a man. I'm not some kind of a god or deity. No different than you are, or she is, or they are. We all have this capacity for ultimate humanity, dignity, living life to the full. That is an earth-bound, and Buddhism is a pragmatic, earth-bound way to live. To the max, right? Unencumbered. There's encumbrances, but those are human, man, samsaric encumbrances. They shouldn't encumber the mind. To seek a parallel in the past, I am like the Bodhisattva Sadaparibhuta, and in my present life are being fulfilled the prophecies about the one who should suffer from sticks and swords and stones. In other words, I am living the life that Shakyamuni described any bodhisattva would live. There will always be resistance. And resistance doesn't know anything but animal behavior, right? Violence, manipulation, or just utter stupidity. And gosh, need I say, if you look around in the world we live in today, plenty of justification for those words from Shakyamuni Buddha through all of the bodhisattvas, including now Nichiren, quoting it, yeah? Can I then entertain any doubt about the fulfillment of the promise of being taken to that Buddha land, that holy peak, as it's described, Vulture Peak, that ceremony in the sky? That's a mental imagination, a mental construct, if you will, of that liberation of Buddha-ness, yeah? It's not a place. It's not someplace we go to, unless you're speaking in metaphors about going to it in your mind, but it's yours. You already have that place. You simply need to experience it, enliven it, invoke it. How then shall not those who are nourishing me, like you, enjoy the communion of the land, of the Buddha land, the land of purity? How could it be avoided? Your efforts to support this effort of mine is no less your effort. This is that symbiotic Sangha relationship, yeah? The author continues, we'll go a little further. Thus, all who live in communion, united by the adoration of the Lotus of Truth, are fellows of the universal and eternal fraternity. We are the dignity of life. Within the communion, however, there are relations to parents and children, of master and disciple. Those words are used differently in the West than I think they were meant at the time. And again, this is a Western interpretation of what Nichiren was saying. The idea of master and disciple in Japanese, medieval Japanese relations wasn't authoritarian. That's the way we think of it in the West. So I don't even like to utter those words because I know the charisma that they have in the West. This relationship that Nichiren is identifying is more of parent and child. Yeah, in the West, we wouldn't call the parent the master and the child the disciple or the servant, right? Although it might seem that way, even in familial relationships, yeah. But that's not how it's meant here. the student rather than servant is motivated by honor, will, curiosity to follow those great examples in our lives that lead us toward resolutions, dignity, right? And so that relation, there's always someone who knows or sees with greater aplomb or perspicacity than ourselves. This is why we say, everyone is my teacher. Because everyone has a different vantage point on your actions. And even if they're incorrect, they point out something that is incorrect, and we learn from that. So we're all students as well as masters. Do you see? That's not a very Western way to think of that relationship. I have a video on this channel where I took that apart in different ways. All right. The aspects of human life which remain through eternity, as in the case of the primeval Buddha and his disciples, and similarly in that of the prophet and his followers, or the Bodhisattva. I need to stop using that word, but it's, I'm using it because that's the title of the book. But what he means, see, prophet is a very Western term as well. Bodhisattva is a much more proactive term, and that's true to Buddhism, yeah? And similarly in that of the Bodhisattva and his students. Yet this relation does not mean mere subordination on the part of the disciples, but gratitude, and its fruit the perpetuation of the truth transmitted and committed to them. So he does address that discord of that Western terminology of master-disciple, right? Or master-servant. So he corrects it a little bit. He knows it doesn't ring true. So kudos, right? This idea has already come out in the relations between Shakyamuni Buddha and other beings when we considered Nichiren's conception of the supreme, right, Buddha-ness, the supreme being, verb, applied to the fellowship of his students in the Buddhist, the Kaidan, the Buddhist Sangha. The same kind of reciprocity of benefaction and gratitude, of entrusting and perpetuation, exists between Nichiren and his students, followers, forever. Consequently, the practice, the kaidan, the mode of practice, is the organ for perpetuating Nichiren's ideals through the efforts of his followers. We all are committed to the singular goal of Buddha-ness. Yeah? Seen in this light, every quickening and inspiring legacy of thought left to his disciple was Nichiren's preparation for the future establishment of the correct practice of Buddhism, yeah? Of the Sangha writ large, as I've talked about. The world, the 8 billion people on this planet, are the Sangha. Many are ignorant of that fact, and it's up to those of us who know to slowly bring them along. We are the bodhisattvas of the earth. And he believed that the approaching Mongol invasion would hasten the realization of this ideal. It would purge this negative, lost, ignorant foolishness that was happening in Japan, represented by the false teachings and the arrogant leadership and the following along of the populace, not challenging this manipulation. They were all leading themselves as we do individually, not recognizing the danger we're bringing on ourselves. And so for Nichiren, though he lamented the Mongols are coming, he also saw it may be necessary. I may need to let my child get hurt in order for my child to finally awaken to what I've been trying to teach him. But it's painful. We don't want to see harm, right? Which was to come about through the repentance and conversion of the Japanese people. All right. Nichiren's great aim was to achieve his ideal of the correct practice, the correct doctrine, the way of practicing Shakyamuni's teaching of the Lotus Sutra, with its center in his own country. Minobu, no less, right? And on that note, we'll continue in the next video. I can't believe the terminology that's adopted in these last chapters, but we'll get through it. Interesting. Everything agrees with other accounts we've heard or read about Nichiren, but there's a personal aspect to this and a perception that this author assembles in this book that I think perhaps makes Nichiren's life and practice and his mentorship to us more contextually relevant, right? We can all relate to these different hurdles of Nichiren's life and ultimately take great inspiration from his commitment and his example, again, on how we ourselves could, should, would practice Namo Myoho Renge Kyo. Yeah? And with that, thank you. Thank you for participating, for listening, for supporting, right? Don't forget, like, subscribe. And if you can, it doesn't cost anything on Patreon. I know a lot of Patreon is set up very capitalistically, that you have to become a member just to avail yourself to the contents. I did not do that. I did at first, and I thought, I just want to make this information available. But it is an engine, an easy place to make a recurring donation. And if you can do that, great. If you're not particularly fond of Patreon, all these videos are linked on Patreon. You can use the PayPal.me/Sifu Sylvain. They have the same engines there that you can support. We have several patrons who support us, and to those patrons, once again, I must express my gratitude, as we all do, for your support. I'll see you in the next one. Take care of your health. Please do that, right? Keep your practice strong. Be kind to yourself. And I'll see you then. Bye for now. Myo.